Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech doing a quick deck tech today. This is a deck tech on a deck that I'm taking apart. I've had this put together since the Commander Arsenal came out last year, and it's got to be one of my favorite EDH decks to play. It is just an amazing deck. The commander for it here is Horde of Notion, and Horde of Notion has Vigilance, Trample, Haste, and a 5/5. It's all 5 colors. And for 5 mana, one of each color, you may play target elemental card from your graveyard without paying its casting cost. Now, when I originally built this deck, it had very few elementals. I've added a few to give it flavor, but I just really wanted a Super Friends deck, a deck with all the Planeswalkers. And I've, over time, figured out some of those Planeswalkers are not so good in EDH, and I've cut them and added some elementals. Let's jump in here. The first group here is just the basic lands. I put in my favorite of each of the basic lands. This is an APAC Plains. It's another one for Great Wall of China here. For mountains, I've got Arabian Night Mountains and Mount Fuji Mountains. Swamps, this is by far my favorite swamp. This is from Portal. And I've got the John Avon forests in here. And as you'll notice, there's a few more forests. Forests are key early game to making this deck work. You must have forests for ramp. And I've also got islands in here. A few Apex and then some Alpha, Beta, Black Border Revised also in here. There's a few more islands. There are more blue spells as I'm a heavy blue player. And it's a little bit weird to see a 5-color deck with that many basic lands. It was one of the things that I really focused on in this deck. Beyond the basic lands, I do have a few non-basics. Evolving Wilds, Command Tower, Reflecting Pool, Naya Panorama. The main reason in here is this grabs a forest, because you really need a forest early game. Terramorphic Expanse. Now, all of those non-basics are basically just fetches, and then I've got the whole suite of fetch lands in here so that I can go get those basic lands. And it's very important that this is a heavy basic deck. Early on, I played Global Ruination, which allows you to just keep one of each basic land type and then toss the rest. I eventually got rid of that, but I still kept the basic land theme for one other card that's in here. Let's jump into the colorless. I've got a Mox Diamond here. Great mana acceleration, and it produces all 5 mana. Soul Ring, the From the Vault Soul Ring. I really love the artwork on this. It's a nice looking foil. Mana Vault, Sensei's Divining Top, a wonderful staple. Scroll Rack, which you'll see a little bit later in here. There's a card this combos with nicely. And Dark Steel Ingot, Solemn Simulacrum, and then Batter Skull. Batter Skull is one of the few win conditions in this entire deck. In red was really tough for me to find good 5-color cards. This is an elemental, though, so it works really well with the commander, Ashling. He's a 1/1, and every time you put a counter on him, he gets larger. If you put 3 counters on him at a time, then you remove all of the counters and do damage equal to the number of counters on him. So he's a nice little board wipe in red. This is my favorite win condition in the deck. It's Price of Progress. I've won several games with this, which is just so much fun out of a 5-color deck. When I originally built the deck, I also had Back to Basics in here. I pulled Back to Basics because people would rather die than not untap for the rest of the game. My favorite win with this particular card was against another 5-color deck. It was a 5-color Progenitus deck where they took a lot of damage fetching lands, putting dual lands in play, and even shock lands as they were playing all 10 shocks, all 10 fetches, and all 10 duels. By the time they had assembled their 10 mana, they had taken nearly 20 damage, and I was able to kill them with the Price of Progress. It's nice to see a nice several $1,000 mana base die to Price of Progress. Praetor's Grasp is definitely an amazing card. It lets you go through another opponent's deck and basically demonic tutor for something in their deck, and in a 5-color deck, it's incredible. It's also wonderful against those combo decks that people play, because you can often pull out a piece of their combo and make them play real Magic. Decree of Pain. This is one of the cards that really inspired me to make this deck. I love the foil artwork on this for the Arsenal, and it's just wonderful in a Super Friends deck because it destroys all creatures, and then you draw a card for each creature destroyed. Land Tax is that card that was mentioned earlier that combos so well with a Scroll Rack because you're able to grab those 3 basic land and then put them back on top of your deck and get real cards for them. Wing Shards is a really nice card. It allows you to have a player sacrifice an attacking creature, and it's got Storm. Often people will cast a bunch of spells, buff up their creatures, attack you, and then lose their whole team. And then Crib Swap is just amazing. This works so well with Horde of Notions because you can basically remove one of their creatures from the game every turn, or several of them if you have a bunch of mana. Spirit of Resistance has definitely kept me in the game for a while. This is an enchantment that if you control a permanent of each color, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Stone Cloaker, really nice way to deal with people's graveyards. If I'm playing EDH, I always have to have at least one answer to people's graveyards, and preferably a few. Asura Command has to be the best of the white board wipes because it gives you so much functionality, although Terminus is a nice second place in my favorites, being able to tuck commanders or people's entire armies. And Treat the Angels also turned out really well in this deck. There were 2 or 3 times where this was a win condition. And the green here is basically just ramp. The idea is to get up to where you have lots and lots of cards. Although Sylvan Library here is a really nice one. This is the Commander's Arsenal. And I was often taking 4 to 8 damage from this and then gaining life back somewhere else. Got more ramp. Eternal Witness is a nice utility card. Krosan Grip, nice that it can't be countered. More ramp here. Lots of ramp. Doubling Season, as you'll see, this is a Super Friends deck. This lets your Super Friends, your Planeswalkers, come into play with twice as many counters on them. Just amazing. Best ramp spell printed for EDH, lets you basically double the amount of lands you have in play. And then Praetor's Council, a lot of times this deck doesn't get going until the mid-game. If it gets stopped the first time, I can throw this down and grab everything from the graveyard. Blue category, I've got Brainstorm and then Mystic Remor. This is one that people often miss when building EDH decks. People hate the words cumulative upkeep, but if you drop this on turn 1, turn 2, or turn 3, you can often draw 5, 6, 7, 8 cards for a single blue, because each time somebody casts a non-creature spell, they have to pay for, or you may draw a card. Cyclonic Rift. Probably even a little bit overpowered in EDH. Incredible way to deal with board stalls, though. Capsize. Rhystic Study. Another one of the Commander Arsenal cards in here. Wonderful card. Often pick up 2 or 3 cards if I drop this early game. Late game, most people know to pay the extra mana, though. Hinder. Very, very, very nice counter spell. It puts the spell on the bottom of their graveyard. Great for commanders. Propaganda, wonderful way to stay alive. I wish this stopped people from attacking your Planeswalkers. Also, this was written before Planeswalkers, though, so it usually just kept me alive. Intuition, incredible instant speed, demonic tutor. Go grab 3 things from your deck. You only get 1 of them, but the other 2 go to your graveyard, so if they are all elementals, you're able to put stuff in your graveyard that you can still cast. Forbidden Alchemy is a really nice way to go through your deck and find some stuff. It also works with the elemental recursion theme because you're putting the other cards into your graveyard. Void Mage Husher. I was actually surprised at how useful the when he comes into play effect is, because it counters target activated ability. I've used this on Mindslavers. I've used this on people's kill conditions. In combo decks, he's great. He also allows you to return him to play whenever you play return him to hand whenever you play a spell. Really, really nice with some of the gold border cards you're going to see in here. This is an overlooked counter spell. Overwhelming Intellect. It only counters creatures, but in Commander, everybody's got a commander. And it draws cards equal to the converted casting cost of whatever you counter. Feel for the cause. Got another counterspell in here. There's not a lot in this deck. We're only looking at a few. This one fits the theme, though, with having Planeswalkers because it proliferates. Tezzeret's Gambit is another proliferate card. Mold Rifter, wonderful elemental. Works really, really well with the Horde of Notions. Cotton Sphinx is in here to draw some extra cards. And then we're into the gold stuff. Coiling Oracle, another nice ramp spell that also can end up drawing you a card. Pernicious Deeds, oh, so good. This card saved me several times, and it just leaves me with Planeswalkers, because it basically destroys everything else on the board except for Planeswalkers and lands that have an X casting cost or less. Bant Charm, really nice 3-color way to deal with somebody's commander. Also, it works to counter some instants. Aura Shards. Now, if you noticed, both of the creatures that I've got in there, the Voidmaid Husher and the Stone Cloaker, both have the ability to come back to your hand. So this turns Aura Shards into a multiple destruction effect. Bloodbraid Elf, wonderful. Cascade is wonderful in EDH because you're just getting something else really nice. Notion Thief. I've got to play this twice so far. This is one of the latest additions in the deck. Wonderful way to draw a significantly large number of cards. Plasma Capture, great counterspell. 2 blue and 2 green's a little rough in a 5-color deck with all basic lands, but you get so much mana from this in Commander that it's well worth it. Prophetic Bolt is another way to cycle through cards, and it's just nice to have a little bit of direct damage in case somebody has an annoying creature. Aetherhorn Sorcerer, another Cascade card, which you may end up being able to cast several times in a turn. And then Conflux. If you're going to play a Demonic Tutor effect, this is the one that it should be in an over-the-top crazy deck, because it lets you go pick up 5 different cards, 1 for each color. Now we're getting into our win conditions. Jace the Mind Sculptor, a little bit grindy. Have won 2 games with him, though. He's actually not as amazing as people think he is in EDH. He's a bit of a target. He only usually brainstorms for you once or twice. But in an empty board, he can be what pulls you ahead. Tameo is incredible. It also has a nice little political feel to it and being able to lock down something that's annoying the rest of the table. Sark of the Mad, probably the weakest one in here, but it's another way to draw cards. You can also use him as spot removal, although they get a 5/5 dragon, which is not the best removal out there. Gideon Jura, just amazing card. Forces people to impale things on your batter skull. Nice spot removal for creatures you don't like. And here are the win conditions that I used most often. Karin Liberated. I only had 1 game actually restart with Karin, although I did ultimate him several times. Incredible Planeswalker. The exiling cards in play is just amazing. Maelstrom Wanderer. Now, he's an honorable mention as a Planeswalker, because he might as well be. I mean, he's a Wanderer, and he often cascades into 2 Planeswalkers in this deck. He also gives your creatures haste and can hit pretty hard himself. And then, my number 1 win condition in this deck was Nico Bolas. Although, I did use his ultimate 3 times in 1 game and not have anyone at the board concede. That was a little bit of a long, grindy game. Usually, I'll get him out, I'll do some damage with him, take some of the other player's creatures and hit them with their own creatures. It's usually not an ultimate that ends up winning it with him, although as a last resort, that's definitely an option. Thanks! This has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech, doing a Horde of Notions deck tech. This is one of the first EDH deck techs I've done on the channel. If you like EDH deck techs and you think that I should do more of them, let me know. Also, if you have any feedback for things that you think should have went into this deck, please make comments here. Whenever I pull apart a deck, it usually only stays apart for about 6 months or so until I decide to rebuild it. I'm not sure what I'm going to build next, but I'm probably looking at a 2-color deck or a single-color deck focusing on one of the gods from Theos. Can't pronounce it yet. The something. Who knows? Thanks.